Hello YouTube, and welcome to this final video, Axis and Allies 1940 Global 2nd Edition, the Pacific Map. We are going to get into the United States, Anzac, and the UK for this video. And Japan may attack us, bring us in the war on the first turn, or they may not. In fact, I would recommend against it, which means that we will just be talking about high-level concepts for these different countries. Of course, if Japan does attack or they move their ships somewhere we aren't expecting, of course, that would influence what we do. But for now, we're going to look at the United States. So we do get decent production, but our production is dramatically going to increase when the Japanese bring us in. That's a big reason that they aren't going to bring us in early. Or at least it's less likely, perhaps, than otherwise, because if they wanted to, they could hit us hard at Pearl Harbor and then give us an extra 30 IPCs. So if Japan does attack us, then we have the choice of dumping a bunch on the Europe side of this game or the Pacific side. And if we do decide to go after Pacific, it won't take us too many turns for us to really start running amok over here. So regardless of what turn it is, we want to position ourselves so that when the time comes, we are ready to strike. And our first target is most likely going to be the Caroline Islands. Now, again, if Japan comes out here and starts taking stuff on its turn, we might divert somewhere else. If they have split up their fleet and their fleet is particularly weak somewhere that we can attack, then we'll want to knock that out, as long as it doesn't imperil our own fleet. But assuming that that is not an option on the table, we are going to be gunning first thing for the Caroline Islands. Now, the reason for that is that we can get there. First, we can get there from Hawaii because we have this naval base here. 1, 2, 3, we can get there. It also has an air base and naval base, which means having a fleet and fighters positioned here, even if they're on the island, not on a carrier, is going to give us some nice range to get deeper into their empire. Ultimately, we are going to be looking to come down here, take the major source of the Japanese income away down here and get the Philippines back, because that's a national objective, and then just kind of hem them in and then eventually go after Japan. Now, the Soviets have a non-aggression pact with Japan. It's unlikely, especially early in game, that either of them are going to break it. And Japan is probably over here bogged down, maybe more successfully, maybe less successfully in Japan. So our job is to swoop in here, start limiting their mobility wherever they have air bases and naval bases. So here, Guam, if they took it, will take that air base back. The Philippines, that has a naval and an air base. And these money islands here, that is going to be our goal. Now, we will get some help in that from Anzac down here. They don't have a ton of production, nor do they start with very many units. But they are a little closer to the action than we are. We have to come all the way down here as America. They're much closer. And so we want to partner with them once we are in the war, and work with them to get and fortify these islands down here. This area is going to be Anzac's main focus. And granted, they can move out beyond that, but their immediate concern is going to be down here, and of course defending their own territories. Now, since we got on the topic of Anzac, we're going to go ahead and continue talking about them. What do they do before the U.S. is in the war? Well, they're going to build up, of course. They want to keep themselves defended. But they also are going to try and fortify these islands, especially the ones that are worth more. Make Japan pay a little bit more to get it. Make them devote more resources to achieving that. And that is the main goal. I mean, we've got units over here. We've got a transport. We've got a couple fighters, so we have a limited means to do that. And so as Anzac, you want to be looking at every single one of your units. Have you used it this turn? Are there any more effective ways of doing it? You don't have that many. It's kind of like playing as Italy. just over in the Pacific. You don't want anything to go to waste. Make sure that you are considering every single unit, and are they furthering the goals of slowing down Japan and then coordinating with the United States. Now, you also are going to get a little bit of help from England over here. So England's Pacific capital is over here in Calcutta in India, and they are going to be focused on a couple of things. They're going to be focused on fortifying these islands, as well as trying to get them back when Japan takes them. So Anzac will get some help over here from England and some help over here from the United States. England is also going to be wanting to help China once England is at war with Japan. It can start moving in here, keep the Silk Road open, give China just a little bit more strength to help bog down the Japanese, and then they're slowly going to push out this way, and then try and wrap up the coast. Now, that isn't an easy thing. It's not going to be a thing that happens quickly. And there may be times that maybe a couple infantry or a fighter or something needs to be pulled back to deal with Germany. And that's okay to do, and maybe you can get extra resources coming this way. You don't want to leave yourself wide open, leave this capital. If this falls, the British Pacific Empire falls. Well, and when I say that, I mean it in the sense that it's like lose any country losing their capital. They lose all their money. They can no longer build stuff. So that's really bad if that happens. So England wants to hold on to this, and at a minimum, try and help out China, and then slowly but surely push up this way with land forces, push this way with navy. As the U.S. comes in here, if the Japanese Navy can be cracked a little bit, there may be opportunity for a British Navy to swing up here. The Japanese, by far, have the strongest military, especially early in game. Later, depending on how things go, how many resources the U.S. dumps over here, maybe the U.S. could be more powerful, but that means that the U.S. isn't devoting resources to Europe. So that is a balancing act for them. The key here is for England and Anzac and the United States, all three, to be coordinating as much as possible, coordinating strategies. And they each come at things from a slightly different vantage point. The U.S. is coming in this way, Anzac is down here, and England is over here. And so they all are going to have their own individual objectives, like England here, and then Anzac immediately here, and the U.S. down here. But they are going to be meeting, and they do need to be coordinating as much as possible, especially early in game. They need to be hitting Japan, well, not even necessarily hitting Japan, but putting pressure on Japan from all three of those directions. And so if Japan counters one of them, the other two are ready to keep going. And then Japan is in a position where it has a lot of forces, but can it successfully defend everywhere? And the Allies just want to keep putting more and more pressure on Japan until eventually it cracks, and suddenly they lose their money islands. China is able to keep pushing back with the help of England, and then you've got the American fleet rivaling the Japanese fleet in here with the needed mobility by taking these naval and air bases. So that's a walkthrough of the other allies, the United Kingdom, Anzac, and the United States. If Japan attacks early, then the same ideas still apply. Each country is just going to be in a slightly different position to pursue those. More time or less time to build up their forces. But of course, Anzac and England could attack Japan before Japan declares war, but I would recommend against that, because then the U.S. isn't going to get bonuses for the Japanese unprovoked attack on their allies. So that is a run through of some high-level ideas for Axis and Allies Global 1940, the Pacific side of the map. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I recently obtained a couple new versions of Axis and Allies, and I hope to get a couple videos of those up here shortly as well.